Hi everyone, welcome back to A Town Called Yarn, obviously not a real town. My name's Harrison, I am 28 and I live in the south of England, and this is episode 5 of these. I've been calling them town halls just because I thought that was clever for the channel being called A Town Called Yarn, but this is episode 5 and this is where I like to talk about knitting, crochet, yarn, that kind of thing. It's been 2 weeks since I last posted and they've been a pretty kind of standard 2 weeks. Not a lot's happened. Last weekend I had my first weekend in a while where I had just nothing to do, and I'm not particularly good at relaxing. It's actually one of the main reasons I think crochet and knitting speaks to me, is because I get to relax and not focus on work or anything like that while still tricking my brain into being productive. Because I just really struggle with not being productive if I can't just sit and not do something. So that was interesting, kind of not having anything to do for the weekend, but I made it through. I mean, obviously it's not a real hardship having nothing to do. I suppose it's a bit of it's a privilege really. But I've got a good amount of knitting done over the last couple of weeks. I've made good progress on all of my whips, which I'll go through in a second. And then I have a little bit I want to talk about kind of plans and goals moving forward. And then I've had 2 deliveries of yarn. Deliveries makes it sound like pallets of yarn are turning up. I've had 2 orders of yarn turn up. One's already fully in a project, so I'll go through that during my whips. And then I've had one other thing turn up, so not loads of yarn. I was planning on not really buying any yarn, and then a pre-order turned up that I had to buy, so I'll talk about that later. But other than that, I think let's go through my whips. So no finished objects as normal. I'm yet to have a finished object. My first episode didn't really count because I just showed you everything I'd made. I'm currently working on, how many whips do I have? 1, 2, 3. I've got 6 things on the go. And I like spreading my time between a few things rather than just focusing on one thing, but I'm hoping I might, in the next month or 2, have at least one finished object. But we'll see, no promises. So let's talk about my first whip. Let's talk about my Sockhead Hat. So this is the Sockhead Hat pattern by Kelly McClure, and I am knitting this in, so it's a finger and weight yarn pattern, and I am knitting this in a colour called Bathing Court of Ladies by Pigment and Ply. So this is my cake of yarn. So I've spoken about this a fair bit before. I spoke about it in every one of these episodes, I think, but the last episode was the first time I'd actually knit anything on it, because it took me a while to work out how to knit in the round. This is my first knitting in the round project, and I'm really happy with it. And I've discovered I really like knitting in the round because there's no purling. I mean, there was obviously in the ribbing, but there's no, the stockinette sections have just gone really easily. So let me get this untangled a little bit. So I am knitting this on 4mm needles. They're 4mm Leica 16-inch circulars. And when I last spoke to you, I had done probably about 2/3 of the ribbing. So I've now completed the ribbing. So it's 4 inches of ribbing in the pattern. So that's, I mean, you can't actually see where the ribbing ends and where the stockinette starts. There you go. So I've done that. And then I've done, I think, about 3 inches of stockinette. The pattern calls for 8 inches of stockinette to, before you start the decreases. I'm not sure. Let me put this on my head. Let's try and put this on my head. So the pattern's called the Sockhead Hat, and it's quite a slouchy pattern. The ribbon doesn't really like to stick up at this because it's kind of pulling down. But it's quite a slouchy pattern. I'm not sure that I want a slouchy hat though, which makes me wonder why I chose this pattern. I really like it though. It's really good instructions. It's really good kind of, I think it's a perfect first hat pattern because it's really quite straightforward and it's really well explained. I think though that I'm probably going to do maybe another 2 inches, maybe another inch before I start the decreases, and have it as more of a fitted hat pattern, because I think that's more the style that I'll go with. which means I don't actually have too much stockinette to go before I start the decreasing. And then I just need to decide whether I'm going to try and decrease on DPNs or transfer it over to Magic Loop. A bit of me is thinking Magic Loop might be the move because I've not successfully done Magic Loop before, being a relatively new knitter, and I think that's a skill that will kind of, if I get that skill under my belt, I think it will kind of pay off a bit more than DPNs, because I know I don't like starting a project like this on DPNs because I tried. So I think Magic Loop, because I want to knit some socks this year, and I think Magic Loop will be how I end up doing that. But we'll see. This is in a, like, all but, I mean two, but one's not really a project bag. This is in a Butternut Handmade bag. So this is the small size that they do on Etsy. As I've said before, and as I will say again, they're my favourite project bags. But that's just in this kind of nice floral pattern. And that's everything I told you the needles. Let's go on to my Faded Undulation. So this is the Faded Undulation by Stephen West. This hasn't got as much progress this week as it's had in previous episodes, because I've just done lots of other things. There's one project that's taken up more of my time than I thought it would, but I have made some progress. So let's find my progress keeper. So that's the amount I've done. So I've done a few repeats of the pattern, and you can't really see yet because it's right at the top, but I have also added in, I'm going to focus, colour 3. So I'm on to the second kind of bit of fading where I'm alternating colours, which tends to go quicker than the bits that are just a single colour. There's something about changing the colour every 2 rows that either makes it seem like it's going faster or makes me more motivated to be like, I'll do another 2 rows because then I'll get to that next colour, whatever it is. So hopefully this will speed up a little bit, because I kind of want to finish it. I'm enjoying it still, and I like it, but where it's quite a big project, I mean, it's not massive, it's obviously not like a finger and weight jumper, but where it's quite a big project, I want to start something else really, but I don't want to start anything of this size until I finish this, is what I'm telling myself. Whether that happens or not, who knows. And I'm knitting this on 3.75, also like a needles, they're in the interchangeables. And this yarn is, I can't really get all the colours out that I'm using because the cakes are kind of falling apart a bit, but all 4 colours I'm using are Bellica yarns, let's move out the way, Bellica yarns in just 4 shades of green. So I got these at last year's Southern Wool Show, and it's just a 75%, 25% superwash merino with nylon, 425 meters. And I really like the yarn. I really like the way it's kind of, the fade is working because they're slightly variegated skeins. And I like the way that's showing up. You get kind of some darker and lighter bits within the fade. My goal for this is to finish it by this year's Southern Wool Show, which is the first weekend, or is it I think it's like the 7th of September, so the first proper weekend of September. So I think I will. This is in another Bellica, no, it's not, that's the name of the yarn. It's another Butternut Handmade bag. This is the first one I got actually, and I really enjoy it. I think that's everything. Yeah, so I'll talk about this a little bit later in my plans, because I have some thoughts. Let's move on to my moss stitch blanket. So this is in a new bag. So it was in a bag before that was the same size as this, and it was just bursting at the seams. Those bags aren't really made for blanket projects. So I've moved it into this one, also from Butternut Handmade. She very this is kind of a custom order that I made, and I chose this fabric and I love it. It's kind of a nice monochrome. I think I'll probably always have a blanket project in this bag. But for now, it's currently a moss stitch fade blanket, which isn't a pattern. It's literally just, I did the maths and worked out how big I wanted it to be. And then the yarn is the Footsteps Yarn Club by Pixie Yarns. Is that right? Have I just made that up? Let me check, because I might be lying to you. One sec. Yes, by Pixie yarn. I'm crocheting this with a 3.5mm hook, and like I said, it's just quite a standard, it's just quite a standard moss stitch. I think I cast on something like 420 stitches, which was a lot. But this is, it started with this blue on the bottom, and we are now working up to into some reds. So you can see I've added kind of probably a third of this colour. I think last time when I spoke to you, I think I was on the orange below it. I haven't got a progress clicker on this, I might add one. I think I was on the orange below, so I finished that colour and added in this next one, which is a much, much deeper, still kind of orangey, but maybe leaning a little bit more into kind of, I suppose more browns, kind of moving into a kind of reddier place. And then I have one more. This yarn is a, so it's the Footsteps Yarn Club is a quarterly, it's not really a subscription, it's just a quarterly club. And this is the last skein of this quarter, so this will be the next one. I'm getting it in 50g fingering weight skeins. In hindsight, I probably should have gone for 50g DK, because with it being a blanket, I don't necessarily need the yardage. I could have just made it thicker, but it was a decision that I made a while ago. And my goal with this is to get it finished, not finished, is to finish this quarter by, I mean, originally I said end of July, but I'm filming this on the 19th, so that doesn't feel doable. So by the end of August, I suppose, by which point the third quarter will have probably come out. So then I like having this where it's just moss stitch. It's quite a like easy repetition, and it's the kind of project where if I want to watch something on TV that's a little bit more like, maybe it's got subtitles or something I want to pay attention to, this is the project that I'm reaching for, because I don't have to count, I don't have to do anything, I'm just powering through it. And I think that's everything on that. So not tons of progress again, mainly because one of my other projects is a crochet project, and that's kind of taken up a lot of my crochet time, which I'll get into in a little bit. Next project has had a decent amount of progress on, or I suppose it's relative, like not loads, don't expect to finish object or anything. But this is the, which is the right side, that's the right side. This is the Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry in Spincycle yarns, which is a sportwear yarn. I'm knitting this on 4mm needles, and I've added all of section 3, which was my goal from last episode, so I'm quite happy with that. So this white bit here was section 2, and then everything above there is section 3. I, for a bit of this, didn't think I was liking section 3. The pattern's fine, because the pattern's quite repetitive, but you can see there, the two colours I'm using kind of blended in, because they both have oranges in. And I thought, I hope that doesn't go on for too long, because I want to see the kind of variation. But it ended up not going on too long, and then you can see that one orange lightens up while the other deepens. So it's quite a nice fade there, actually. I did make a mistake in, I thought I'd finished section 2 last time, which means I jumped straight into section 3. But then I realised you can see those lines there where there's white and orange in the line. That's not meant to be there. I was meant to do 2 more rows of the first colour, which is the purple, before I started section 3. I noticed just after I'd done it, and I was going to go back, but I didn't want to, so I didn't. and I actually don't mind it. I think it looks fine. It doesn't look like a massive mistake. I think it looks semi-intentional, but I do need to just make sure I know where I am. I need to make a note of where I am when I'm putting this down. But next is on to section 3, which will brighten up a bit, because as you can see, the first colour is lightening quite a bit, and then the next colour has some more whites in it. So it will lighten up. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't remeasured. I did a gauge swatch on this, which is quite good for me, to be honest. I don't tend to gauge swatch. But I did on this, and I got gauge on these needles, but my measurements don't seem to be working out. So I think because it's kind of where it slip stitches, I think it's kind of pulling itself in a bit. So it's not working out quite as big as the pattern says. but I think I'll be able to sort it out mostly via blocking. This bit here specifically, I think it's meant to be about 10 inches, and mine's definitely not 10 inches. So, but I think it's got some good stretch to it. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't, and then I'll move on quite easily from it. So I'm not overly worried, but I'd like it to be, I want it to be as good as possible, because I really love the construction. I didn't love the construction for this first bit, because for some reason I really struggle with the kind of selvage edge where you're just slipping lines. I struggle to maintain the tension on it, but now we're back to an I-cord edge, so I'm enjoying it again. And we won't get to that next selvage edge for a while when we finish it off. And like I said, I'm using Spincycle yarns for this, which made it quite pricey, to be honest. And I don't know whether I think I would make another one of these. I don't think I would make it again in Spincycle, just because it just feels a bit unnecessarily expensive, to be honest. But the 3 colours that I'm using, oh God, which colour's which? That is such a good question. I have the labels. So I have Mississippi Marsala, Burning Sensation, and Wololo. I couldn't tell you which is which though, sorry about that. But those are I won't get them out because they're kind of, oh actually that's not useful at all, is it? Can you see? No, I will get them out. So this is colour A. So I think this might be, I'm not even going to guess. So this is the kind of the main colour so far. It's got, this is, you can see the orange where it started to mix with the others, but it's mainly kind of a purpley skein. This is the second colour, so we're kind of moving out of the oranges now into some greys. And then this is the third colour, which is much lighter of a skein. We're kind of into the greys, and then there's a little bit of light orange there as well. So I think they're working really well together, and I think the final piece will be good. I'm hoping I don't get too many of those sections where the colours overlap too much though. Next, let's talk about the crochet project that's been taking up most of my time. We're attached. So I spoke last time about, I wanted to make a bag for my sister. My sister's birthday is next week at the time of filming, and I wanted to make a bag, but I started following a pattern and I just wasn't, there was nothing wrong with the pattern and it was fine. I just don't like crochet increases that are kind of change every row. I want something a bit more repetitive because I crochet in a way that I want it to be a bit mindless. So that didn't work, and then I made, do I still have it in here actually? Yeah, then I made this granny square, and I thought maybe I'll make a granny square bag, but I'd like a granny square bag. I think they look nice, but my sister wouldn't use it. So the yarn I'm using is Drops Paris in, so it's 100% cotton in the colour 67, which I don't know the name of it. I don't know if they also give names online. I think it's called Oatmeal. I think that's what I've been saying, but I might be making that up. But let me show you where I've got to. So I've ended up, this isn't a pattern. I'm really just making things up at this point. I'll actually show you. I did some sketches. Sketches is overdoing actually, I'm not an artist. I did some measurements and kind of some maths to work out how big I wanted it, and it's going to be quite a big bag because I think my sister will use it more as kind of a catch-all. She's going to the beach with her, like with my nephew, that kind of thing. I think. I mean, she might never use it. She might never get it. It might take forever to make. But this is where I'm up to at the moment. So I did the base as more of a square base, which meant I could do much easier increasing in the corners. And then I've started working up the side, and what I'm doing is I'm kind of crocheting it inside out, and I'm crocheting, so this is the side that I'm looking at when I'm crocheting, which I suppose is the wrong side, and I'm doing double crochet, front post double crochet again, and then a front post double crochet, and I'm kind of alternating that. So what it will give me when I turn it in the right way is this kind of effect. So it's kind of got these ridges that are separated a bit further out than if I did them every row. So I'm currently debating as to whether I'm going to do this all the way up or whether I'm going to do it as a bit at the bottom and then a bit at the top and then do more kind of plain double crochets in between. We'll see. I'm quite enjoying it. I'm kind of just making it up as I go, but it's taking a long time. And like I said, at the time of filming this is the 19th. I am seeing my sister on the 27th, which is when I'll give this to her. I think I've made too big a bag to give her for that time. So I'm either going to give it to her as an IOU and then I'll give it to her when it's done, or I won't tell her about it and I'll give it to her at Christmas. Although it is more of a summery bag, so I wanted to give it to her in the summer. So I might just give it to her later when I finished it, or I might give it to her next year. I don't know really. It's not something she's kind of asked for, she's desperate for, so I can take my time on it. But and this isn't in the project bag. I've just kept this in the kind of organza wool warehouse bag that the yarn came in, which I quite like. These bags are actually so useful. I've got loads of them, and yeah, they're just super like, where you don't want to keep something in an actual project bag, but you just kind of want to store it. They're really, really great. Then let's go on to my last whip. Is this my last whip? Yeah. So this one is another one that's part of a yarn club. So this is part of the GreenLambkin Yarns Secret Treasure Box Yarn Club, which is a monthly subscription, and I'm getting it. You can get it either in the Classic DK or the Sparkle DK yarn. I'm getting it in the Classic DK because I'm not a massive fan of Sparkle in my yarn, and I'm making the Granny Wrap by Anaboos House. So we are officially at the halfway point for this, having had June's colours added in. It's quite a simple kind of granny stitch pattern that just increases in the centre and at the corners. And then I will show you the colours that I've added in. So those last 4 colours there, so we've got the blue, the kind of pinks, purples and kind of whites. Another one that's kind of, it was quite light and then had kind of greens and pinks in, that you can see there. Oh, actually, that might have been the same colour as that one, to be honest. And then we had one that was a deeper purple and pinks, so you can see it kind of gets deeper there. And then the last one was oranges and kind of yellows, which is what I've ended on. So I'm just adding in them in as they get here. I'm weaving in the ends as I go, and I'm doing it on a 4.5mm hook. Yeah, 4.5mm hook, and I'm just going to keep going with it all year. I'm really happy with the size it's getting to, so I know I'm really going to be happy with the size at the end, because obviously it's going to grow again over the next 6 months. And then this is in a bag, this is in a bag that I made that's a bit wonky. It's a bit of an odd shape because I didn't take into account the box bottom when I did the width, so it made it a bit kind of tall, but not as wide as I wanted it to be. But I'm happy with it. And then I've got my dodgy bag pin on it from Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful, who's actually the inspiration behind this project, because she's made a couple of them and I really like the look of them, and it's a really good mindless crochet project. So that is that. So that's my whip, so I'm happy with the progress on them. Let me reset a little bit and then I will talk to you a bit about plans and goals. There we go. Right, all reset. So let's talk, first let me talk about the yarn that's came in. So obviously, like I said, I had 2 bits. One is the yarn that came from the GreenLambkin Yarn Secret Blanket Club, but I tend to put that in the project straight away, so there's nothing really to talk about there. The next thing that came, and this was, I've had a bit of a habit recently of pre-orders coming really quickly, because I had it with the Family Madrigal yarn from the Crafty Bird, but this is from Skein and Stitch. So something about me is I love Hamilton. I've loved Hamilton since it, and I could go on about it for ages and I won't. I've loved Hamilton since it was like a concept album before it was even on Broadway. I kind of discovered it online ages and ages ago, and then I followed it all the way since. I know like all the words, I listen to it all the time. So when Skein and the Stitch, I think her name's Jess at Skein and the Stitch, said that she was going to be releasing a Hamilton themed yarn set, I knew I had to get on it, because like I said, I just love Hamilton. So I opted for, a couple of the skeins I wanted in full skeins, but I didn't know what I'd do with them because the colours weren't necessarily something that I'd wear or like have something for me, and I couldn't think of what to make with them. So, but they're all really, really pretty, and they're all spot on for, if you've seen the musical, if you kind of understand the vibe of Hamilton, they are all spot on. So what I ended up getting instead was a mini skein set. So this is, how many? 1, 2, 3. This is 6 minis, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, all 20 grams. And this is the set of colours, and I honestly think that they're all so spot on. I think my favourite is probably, oh, it's hard to decide. I think I really love this green. Actually, let me look up, I can tell you what the names are, because they're still available as full skein sets. Not sets. Oh, you might be able to get a set actually. They might not be available by the time you watch this actually. I don't know. So let me go through. So this blue colour is called History Has Its Eyes on You, which is a line from a song in Hamilton. I really like this. It says that it's inspired by the kind of navy blue of like Patriot uniforms, and I think it's so spot on. The next colour is this kind of really light blue, almost kind of bluish grey, which is called Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story. It's showing up a little bit bluer on camera than it is in real life. It's actually a little bit lighter than that. But this is a song at the end of Hamilton. Next there's the green, which is called Aaron Burser. So Aaron Burr is one of the characters, and Aaron Burser is a line that's repeated a lot. The next one is called Angelica, Eliza and Peggy, who are the 3 Schuyler sisters in the play, and this is kind of based off of their kind of dresses, and this could be my favourite one actually. I really, really like it. I think it would make a really nice, kind of quite light, like lofty scarf. Then we have My Shot, which is this kind of more orangey, kind of beigey. There we go. They're showing up a little bit brighter on camera than they are in real life. They're a little bit more muted, but so yeah, that's called My Shot. And then the last one is called You'll Be Back, which is a song sung by King George in the musical. Obviously not the real King George, he's very much dead, but this is kind of inspired by his outfit in the show. And these are all spot on. I would get full skeins of all of them 10 times over if I knew what to do with them. And then this leads me quite nicely into some of my plans for the future. I mean, that sounds quite dramatic, doesn't it? I spoke last week, I had some mini skeins arrive from Lay Family Yarns. I bought a couple of their kind of scrap packs, which had an assortment of 10 gram and 20 gram minis in them. And I really, really like them. And I definitely will use them probably for kind of various scrappy projects. But originally my plan was to use them along with other mini skeins in a granny square, kind of large granny square blanket. Since these have come out, and I have another mini skein set I showed a few weeks ago that was from the Crafty Birds Good Omens set. I think I want to make that granny square blanket still, but I want to use yarn that kind of represents things that I'm interested in. So kind of skeins and colourways that represent either shows that I like, films, musicals, that kind of thing. Which probably make it a much more long-term project because I have to wait until those kinds of things exist. But I quite like that. I think that's a fun idea. And then I think eventually I would end up with a decent sized blanket that kind of has a bit more to it than it just being mini skeins. Because those Lay Family Yarn mini skeins are really, really nice. But they aren't, they obviously don't mean anything. They're kind of a random assortment of colours. And I think they'd go really nicely in a blanket. But I think I want colourways that I can kind of point out and be like, oh, that's from the Hamilton set, or that's from the Good Omens set, or whatever it is. Especially because I'm getting a Doctor Who advert this year from The Lonely Knitter, and those are going to be 20-gram skeins. And the project, the Granny Square blanket, I'll probably use 10 grams of each colour, so I'd be able to use them in kind of maybe one advent project, but then also create Granny Squares to go in this blanket from Doctor Who. Maybe not with all of the colours, because 24 would probably be quite overwhelming for the pattern. So maybe I'll pick out some of the colours that are maybe kind of quite significant colours that kind of point something out in terms that makes me think of Doctor Who. I think that's the plan. We'll see. It's probably not a project I'll start on for a while because, like I said, I don't have all the skeins yet, but I might start putting them to one side as here's the stuff for that project. And then I'm thinking when I finish this moss stitch blanket, I'll want a quite simple, straightforward crochet project. That might be when I start it. So it might be that I don't start it till next year, but then I can spend a little bit of time getting the yarn together and kind of working out how I want to do that. It might be that it's not always yarn that is part of like a TV show or something that I watch. It might be specific skeins that mean something or call something out to me. So for example, I'm going to the Southern Wool Show in September. I might find a couple of minis there that are kind of, I suppose, like souvenir skeins from there. And then if I go on holiday or go visit anywhere, there might be some souvenir skeins that add into the blanket as well. I think it's the plan. So that's that plan. I mean, it's again quite a long-term plan. I keep talking, I spoke about it last week as well. I should probably not spend too much time talking about this blanket I'm thinking of making in about 6 months, because I don't know if that's particularly interesting. A couple of more plans I've got. So I keep track of all my, I have this. So this is a traveller's notebook that I got to keep track of all my knitting and crochet and all things like that. Because I was trying to do it online, I was trying to do it on Ravelry, and I like Ravelry for, I think as a pattern resource, it's really, really good. I think the forums are really good, and there's a lot of good resource on there. I don't like it for kind of keeping track of my own projects, because I find that it's something I have to think of to update, whereas I just want something I can jot down. And although I'm really into kind of tech, I like tech and that kind of thing, I find I've never been able to step away from pen and paper when it comes to organising or that kind of thing. So I got this traveller's notebook. So what it is, it's one of those where you kind of get a case and then you can choose what things you want to go into it. Which, I mean, thinking about it, to be honest, it might be kind of a bit of a millennial version of a filofax. We may have just reinvented the filofax and made it a bit more like hip. But I say we, I wasn't involved in the production of this. But my plans, so this is where I keep my plans. I have kind of some pockets in the front where I keep some yarn labels of yarn that I'm using at the moment, just so I can keep track of that and remember it. I have a lined notebook, which is where I do my show notes, which, by the way, everything that I speak about in this video will be linked down below, as it always is. So if you want to go find links to patterns or yarn, it's always down there. So I keep my show notes in there, and then I also keep on these lined pages. I'll often do pages where I'll kind of write down yarn that I want to plan patterns for. So at the moment I'm trying to work out what I want to do with the M25 colourway that I have from the Crafty Bird as part of that Good Omens collection. So I've kind of got that there, and the meterage and the weight I've got, so when I'm on Ravelry I can just look it up without having to go get the yarn. I then have a square grid notebook, and this is where I keep track of all my projects. So I wrote down all the projects that I've made before I used this notebook, and I gave them all a green sticker because stickers are fun. And then I've got all my other plans, or all my other projects have their own page, and the long-term ones I'm giving a blue sticker, and then the other ones, when I finish them, will get a green sticker. And then at the back I have this kind of plastic wallet, and then in here I'm keeping just kind of bits of paper that I've got from, so I got a kind of thank you note from a purchase I did from Ali at the Little Drops of Wonderful, and then a card that I got with that custom order of the bag. It was a really, really lovely card from, I think her name's pronounced Concetta. She wrote a really lovely card on that, and then I also keep my stickers for my projects back there. I mean, that wasn't really what I planned on talking about, but if you like notebooks, I like notebooks, and this is what I use. It really kind of fits my brain, this kind of system. My plans for the next couple of weeks, though, is that I want to focus more on my faded undulation. I want to get some good progress on this. I would like to maybe get to the point where I'm breaking off colour 3. No, breaking off colour 2. So I'm kind of in the final stretch of it. That might be lofty goals, though. That might be a bit much, but I think from a knitting perspective, I'd like to put a bit more focus in that again, because I want to finish it by September, or by the start of September. And then other than that, kind of like I spoke about already, this bag needs to be done. So I think though I'm going to keep working on it a bit, but I think I need to be honest with myself and say, this is either going to get finished for next week and then power through with it, or say it's not going to get finished next week, it's a gift for someone else, and then I'll put it to one side and kind of do it slow. The problem is, if I put it to one side, I probably won't pick it up very much, because it's not my favourite kind of crochet, where it's a cotton yarn, and I don't love working with cotton all that much, and it's quite repetitive, and it's obviously very beige, so there's no kind of intrigue to the colour as it's working through. But I do need to make this bit. The more and more I talk about it, the more and more I'm thinking it might be a Christmas present, which is fine. I like giving handmade things at Christmas anyway, so maybe that saves me having to work out what to make for my sister for Christmas. But that's kind of my main goals for the next couple of weeks. I won't get any more yarn for this. Actually, I might do. By the next time you see me, the next yarn for this might have come in, but it might come in just after, so you probably won't see that for a couple of episodes. And then I want to keep making good progress on the shift cowl as well, really. But I'm going to prioritise the faded undulation because no real reason. And then I need to decide whether I want to decrease this on Magic Loop or not, and then figure out how to do that. And then I think there's a chance this might be my first finished object on the channel. And how exciting would that be? So exciting. So exciting. But I think that's everything from me, really. I will see you in 2 weeks. I think, yeah, I'll be fine uploading 2 weeks. Work's kind of settled down a little bit, so I don't see any major things stopping me from uploading in a couple of weeks. If you're still watching, though, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here and you enjoyed this, if you want to subscribe, that'd be great. If you're not new here and you enjoyed this and you're not subscribed, subscribing would also be great. New or old, either works. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be really, I almost said a like would be really thumbs up, which is an awful sentence. A like would be great. And if not, thank you so much for watching still, and I will see you next time.